Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm good. Got some good topics tonight, man.
Got a lot of controversy to talk about.
Yeah.
Dan Hurley. People love my take on Dan Hurley. I'm turning to be more right as the days keep going. And now there's a report out there that we're going to get into at the very end of the show about Dan Hurley and the UConn Huskies. We'll get into all of that. But a lot to talk about. We finally get into this topic. I do want to jump in with the first topic of today's show, so take it away.
Okay, during the Patriots' annual draft party for season ticket holders on Sunday, Patriots Executive Vice President of Player Personnel, Eliot Wolf, insisted the Patriots were going to take the best player available in the upcoming draft. His quote, "The best player available is going to be the way it is. Maybe we went for need a little too much last year. Obviously, that culminated in us drafting Drake May, so it wasn't all bad. But just moving forward, it's taking the best player and understanding that we've filled a lot of needs already in free agency." So, Nate, what should the Patriots do in this year's draft with the number 4 overall pick?
Well, I know that we actually had this conversation when we talked about some of their free agent moves last time, and actually let's bring up some of those free agent moves because, as you can see, it's mostly defense. Right now, only the key free agent acquisitions that the Patriots had are Josh Dobbs, who's a backup quarterback, Mac Hollins, who will probably be wide receiver 3 or 4 on the team, and Garrett Bradbury, who replaces David Andrews, who had a down year and got released, and he obviously got hurt. But he's regressed every single year for a number of years at this point now. So that's really the only key offensive moves that the Patriots made this free agency. DK Metcalf, they tried to trade for. He didn't even want to go there. Chris Godwin reportedly turned down blank checks from the Patriots to re-sign for less money with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No skill position player wants to be a New England Patriot, so I can understand it. But to say now that you're going to take the best player available at the number 4 spot, well, let's role play within this scenario a little bit, because right now, as it stands, most of the mock drafts have Cam Ward going number 1, and then Shedeur Sanders either going number 2 or number 3, depending on where you want to look at it. So that means the Patriots have an opportunity to get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and you could also get any offensive lineman you want. Now, this is what's interesting, because the glaring need for the Patriots is obviously offensive line, which then would make everybody believe that maybe the Patriots aren't going to draft an offensive lineman. And we actually discussed that before. Who would they get? And some people in our comment section talked about how they would probably go with Will Campbell, the offensive lineman, who is technically listed as a tackle, but because of his short arms, may move to guard. Now, what I think the best move would be, Fedarian Lowe should not be a starter. I would move Morgan Moses to left tackle. I would move Michael Wenu to right tackle. And then if you want to draft an offensive lineman, Will Campbell's already got short arms. You can move him to a guard spot. That could be something you do. But I think if we take a look at all the talent, now I'm hearing Ashton Genty, running back out of Boise State, could be a potential pick for the Patriots. Well, Ramondre Stevenson right now has regressed massively in, the 2 or 3 years that he's been with the New England Patriots. I mean, it's bad how last season Ramondre Stevenson couldn't hold on to the football. Fumble, I think he led all running backs in fumbles. It was a complete mess last year. So Ashton Genty might be a nice little pickup for Drake May. But I think the way this offense is going, I think that if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter are there, because right now the Browns may also be looking at Abdul Carter, which is a perfectly fine pick, I think. Have two incredible pass rushers, one extremely young and one that you're spending over $40 million on to be on your team. I think that could be a good pick. But I kind of agree with Eliot Wolf. I think right now you want to go with best player available, because let's say that Joe Milton doesn't have a phenomenal Week 18 game and they ended up losing that game. Well, then you would have the number 1 overall pick. My guess would be it would be Bill Belichickian, and they would trade back out of that pick, probably to the number 4 spot where they are currently, and accumulate draft capital. I think that could be a potential opportunity for them as well. Trade back. I saw some people discussing them trading back to the Las Vegas Raiders at the number 6 pick. That could be a potential situation that the Patriots have. But as it currently stands, I think this is a smart move. I think that you want to go best available player, because right now you have holes all over the place. Let's bring up some of the numbers. So some people saying, well, let's look at the offense right now. Because last year, the offensive numbers were abysmal. Bottom of the league in basically everything. 30th in points per game. Total yards per play, you were 28th in the league. Total yards per game, you were 31st. EPA per play, you were 28th. Wide receiver separation, that's the big thing, right? Wide receiver separation, you were tied for 25th in the NFL. And your offensive line, that was a key spot that you had no talent in whatsoever. You had the worst pressure rate in the NFL offensively. You got a bunch of defensive ones, right? Eliot Wolf's talking about how they filled a lot of their holes in free agency. Well, the defense was a massive part of why the Patriots failed last year, because if you take a look at the numbers now, 22nd in points allowed, 22nd in total yards allowed, 28th in EPA per play allowed, total pressures, you were only ranked 30th. You've always been talking about for years how the Patriots never get to the quarterback. Well, last year they were tied for 30th in the NFL in total pressures. Time to pressure the quarterback, 2.72 seconds. That ranked 22nd. And their pressure rate was ranked 29th in the NFL. So the Patriots are all around a terrible team. So that's why this makes so much sense. You don't have a glaring hole, because apparently, according to this, you have all holes. You have holes all over the place. So offensively, you can go Ashton Genty. I don't know if you want to get him at 4. I don't know if he's that level of running back, but you could get Ashton Genty. You could get Travis Hunter. Abdul Carter might not be a terrible idea. You have options, and why not also trade back? It sounds like they're going to probably draft a player at the number 4 spot, but I think right now the Patriots are in a position, because they're so bad, to draft maybe 4 or 5 guys with that one singular pick. Last year it was obvious, because you were going to get rid of Mac Jones. Bailey Zappi wasn't the answer. You were going to go with a quarterback, and Drake May fell into your arms. And I hate his turnover problems, but he was a rookie. I'll cut him a little bit of slack with the worst supporting cast in the NFL and the dead last ranked offensive line. So maybe if Morgan Moses hits and maybe they draft Will Campbell and keep him at tackle, the offensive line could be better, and Garrett Bradbury is a perfect center for him. I think that could work. But overall, I'm saying I agree with Eliot Wolf. Draft whoever's there, because there's a lot of great talent early. I don't know about much later, though.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I tend to disagree. I think that they should draft back and get more draft capital. I'll get into my analysis there. But first, I want to say the Patriots hired a defensive coach, and he went with defensive players, when the biggest holes in the team are on the offense. Look at all the defensive players there. A defensive tackle, a cornerback, a linebacker, an outside linebacker. They did pick up a center, which is good, because Andrews is not going to play. They picked up a wide receiver, but Mac Hollins, I mean, he's not a big name. Morgan Moses, offensive tackle, he's serviceable, right? Didn't he play for the Jets last year?
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess he's serviceable. He's better than what they have, but he's not an all-pro. Joshua Dobbs, give me a break. He's a throwaway. I mean, they just don't want Joe Milton there, because he looked good in Week 18, and he could give Drake May a little problem if Drake May's just looking bad. So I didn't want that kind of pressure on him. So I don't know. I think they should have gone more on the. I think the defense was. They had good players on defense, except for the rushing. I agree with you there, Nate, and I've said it. They don't put enough pressure on the quarterback. They need to fix that. But did they make wholesale changes at linebacker? Why? They have Tavai. They had Jawan Bentley. Those guys are pretty good. I thought that they actually, the linebacker core was pretty decent. Their secondary was pretty good, too. They brought in Clayton,
Carlton Davis.
Carlton Davis. Yeah. I don't get it. I think they should have focused on the offensive side of the ball more. So now, here we are with the hand that's been dealt, mostly defensive players and free agency. What's left? So they say they're going to go with the best available player, okay, at number 4. They feel like they fill the defensive needs through the free agency, including high-profile players like Milton Williams and Carlton Davis. The biggest remaining holes, I think, and there's lots of holes on the offense, but the biggest ones are the left offensive tackle and a playmaking receiver. Wolf feels they filled a lot of their needs already in free agency. He wants to go with the best available player. They also picked up edge rusher Harold Landry, linebacker Roberts Spillane, and right tackle Morgan Moses, which we saw on the list there. There are not many left tackles left in free agency, right? You're not going to get one there. Wide receiver has more options. They probably could land Stephon Diggs if they give him enough money. Does he really want to go back to Houston? He'd probably like to be back in the the AFC East and play against Buffalo a few times a year, so show them what he can do. Who could be the best player available at number 4? Well, you mentioned Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Will Campbell as offensive lineman, or trade down to pick up more draft capital. I heard there's rumors that the Bengals want the number 4 pick to pick defensive lineman Mason Graham from Michigan.
That'd be a good pickup.
The Pats would get the Bengals number 17 pick to take maybe Matthew Golden. Yeah, and also get the Bengals' second-round pick to take an offensive tackle. I think that makes more sense to me. Some advocate for taking a wait-and-see approach, and if Carter and Hunter are gone, you trade back. If one of them is there, you take them. But stay within the top 10 when you trade back to get either Will Campbell, Armand Mambo, or Josh Simmons to fill the left tackle hole. One of those 3 is going to be available within the top 10 picks. To stay within the top 10, maybe, the Jets at 7 or the Saints at 9. You might be able to, those are possibilities that you might be able to make. But I think the Patriots, they went too much on defense. They should have stuck with more of the defensive players. They weren't coached well last year. The defense was very good under Belichick the year before. With Mike Vrabel there, a Belichick disciple, maybe he could have gotten more mileage out of those guys, and they could have saved some of their capital for more offensive players. That's my
What I find interesting is that Eliot Wolf's talking about how they tried last year to fill in need, and that's what they did.
They failed.
Right, but here's my thing, right?
They failed.
Right. And that's my point. They only selected one defensive player out of the entire draft. The rest was offense. But it's the quality of the picks that you selected. Because right now, who they selected last year was Jalen Polk, who was garbage, Caden Wallace, who barely played, Layden Robinson, who barely played as well and just wasn't good, and then Jaheim Bell at tight end, who they already had 2 starting tight ends in Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry. And then it was Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper.
Actually, the tight end play was pretty good this year. Why did they draft one? Those 2 guys did well. I don't think they.
Last year was Gesicki.
He was a good player. He's been good with them for several years now.
It was Austin Hooper last year.
But their picks were lousy. Well, you have to say that. Their picks last year were lousy.
And I think that's Eliot Wolf's fault. He blamed himself for the roster. I don't think it was the fact that you selected only one defensive player the entire draft. It's who you selected, because you traded down and let the Chargers take Ladd McConkey, and you were stuck with Jalen Polk. I mean, that's kind of the moves that I'm talking about here. You had players available, like, for instance, A.D. Mitchell, who went to the Colts. He was available at the time. You had guys that you could have selected in the draft, but you decided to trade back and select guys who weren't that great anyway.
I mean, Drake May was their only good pick, basically.
Yes.
Right? That was it.
And you could argue Joe Milton was their next best pick out of that draft.
Yeah, 2 quarterbacks.
And one of them only played 1 game.
Yeah.
So, I think right now, because, Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson both earned PFF grades in the 40s. 40s. And they had, I believe, the worst graded offensive lineman, or the second lowest offensive lineman in the entire for the entire season last year. So it's not the fact that you selected a bunch of offensive pieces in the draft to fill the need. The ones you just picked were bad.
Yeah.
That's not, oh yeah, we should have done more of a blend of defensive guys and kickers and punters and linemen and defensive backs and whatnot. No. The guys you just picked were terrible. That's your fault.
Yeah.
And
when you could have had Lab McConkey
and by the way,
didn't get him?
Correct, you could have. Just like how they selected N'Keal Harry and they could have gotten Deebo Samuel.
Well, yeah.
The pick they traded to the Seahawks that year, the 42nd pick.
Oh, they could have had DK Metcalf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was, well, at the time, like this offseason, he didn't even want to speak to the
No,
Patriots.
I understand that, but they could have had him in the draft.
Correct. Instead, they went with N'Keal Harry. They have 8 more picks outside of the first 32, including picks 38, 69, 77, 106. So you have an opportunity, and I swear, if they go more Bill Belichickian, where it's defensive guys and kickers and punters, I'm going to be very, very concerned.
Well, if they go best available player, it might be Abdul Carter. He's a defensive guy.
And he's probably the best all-around talent in the draft. But I would not be surprised whatsoever if, honestly, if the Browns decide to choose Carter, that, I don't know if you want to say that makes a lot of sense depending on their current quarterback situation of Kenny Pickett. But I would say that wouldn't shock me. The Giants selecting a Travis Hunter also wouldn't shock me at this point. There's some that we're going to talk about later that's looking towards maybe not Shador going there. But, I think that the Patriots have an opportunity to expand on their depth. Their defense right now, Jonathan Jones isn't great. That's why he's gone. They replaced him with Carlton Davis. I like that to pair him up with Christian Gonzalez. I don't mind that whatsoever. Kyle Duggar just had the worst year of his career last year. He needs to improve on that, and there's something with guys. The year after they get paid, they normally don't perform as well. Kyle Duggar right now is an example of that. He got paid, and last year he had his worst season of his entire career. I also don't like, and I've said this several times now, Marcus Jones still being a starter nickelback. He's a 5'8" guy. The fact that he's still a starter for the New England Patriots, I think, is a bad idea because I saw him several times last season get absolutely destroyed and mossed by several wide receivers because he's too short. He's fast as hell, I'll give you that. But if you're going to put him in any sort of man-on-man coverage, he's going to get cooked every single time. So I would have preferred them maybe get another cornerback or get another safety in free agency, but there's actually a couple very, very nice pieces in the draft. So if you trade back, you can get a Will Johnson.
I mean, what grade would you give the Patriots draft last year, aside from Drake May? We'll give them an A on that. But everything else,
I wouldn't even give them an A for Drake May.
Why?
Because he didn't perform all that great. He had turnover issues. He wasn't great. He couldn't even beat out Jacoby Brissett.
As you said, he had nobody to play with him. He was out there by himself.
I could give him the benefit of the doubt, but I could also say he didn't play that well.
Well, I don't know. Some of those turnovers were, he was under terrible pressure. He was sacked and fumbled.
Correct.
Correct. I don't know. I think
but also, we just saw Caleb Williams have no offensive line.
He should have a better offensive line this year. We'll see. That'll be a better
you have a legitimate
and he has a
right
better
tackle.
Offensive coordinator, too.
You have a legitimate
better
right
offensive
tackle
coordinator.
now.
They have improved the coaching staff.
Well, we'll see how Josh McDaniels does.
I think they missed opportunities last year in last year's draft. And this year's draft, they say best available player. We'll wait and see. If they trade down for capital and picking these players that are questionable whether they're going to be a franchise player or not, maybe they're best off at best available player because they can't mess it up too much when we know the first 5 or 6 players are probably going to be very, very good.
And here's my thing, right? And I said this last time and someone had an issue with it. If Travis Hunter's available, he could play 2 spots for you. Wide receiver and cornerback. I know he's not going to play 70 snaps on each side of the ball, but you could put him in. You could put him in as the nickelback. Take Marcus Jones out. You could swap snaps with the both of them. Yeah. In key situations, put in Travis Hunter.
I don't know. It's tough for an NFL player to play 2 ways.
What's it called? Deion Sanders did it.
I know.
He played both, but that was early in his career.
Didn't play that much on offense.
Correct, but he did have one season where he played a decent amount of offense. He had a few hundred yards one year. I'm not saying, like I said, he's not going to play 140 snaps a game. But you could put him in for 20 on defense,
put Marcus
40
Jones
on offense.
Put Marcus Jones over on offense.
He scored a couple offensive touchdowns.
When he was in there, he was a playmaker. So they just didn't let him do it very often. He was only in there occasionally.
Right.
So.
But that's exactly, he's a gadget guy. I think with Travis Hunter, you could put him in for 20, 25 plays on defense, 30, 40 plays on offense. Mm-hmm. He's satisfied with still being considered a two-way player. And I think he can make a big impact on both sides of the ball. And that clears up 2 potential needs for you. Yeah. You may need another cornerback for depth. You definitely need a wide receiver playmaker. Because Demario Douglas at 5'8" playing the slot, he's not going to go out wide. He's not going to beat you over the top.
Well,
It's easy for
Well, how about
defenders.
the idea of getting Golden and also winding up with a very good offensive left tackle by trading down?
Maybe, but then you have to put in faith that Matthew Golden is that guy.
Well,
I think there are probably 2 or 3 receivers that I would take before Golden.
Well, he may not be available at They may not be
38,
available at number
I'll,
17. Number 17.
That very well could be the case.
If they went with the Bengals.
Or if they decide just to stick with number 4 and they take whoever else and decide, you know what, we need a receiver or another receiver. Will another top guy be available at 38?
I think they should keep their options open, see what happens with the first 3 picks, and have something ready to go if they wanted to trade down.
That's fair enough. Let's get to our next topic here. Read it off.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers is taking his time with making the next move, whether that be with the Steelers, the Giants, the Vikings, or even calling it a career and hanging it up. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer said Rodgers is looking for a culture as the one in for a culture that's similar to the one in Green Bay. Now that's an interesting comment. So what do you think? Do you expect Rodgers to get his wish?
Well, first of all, I find this very, very funny because he forced his way out of Green Bay years ago. Remember when he went on that darkness retreat and Brian Gutekunst said that he couldn't reach Aaron Rodgers? And I think Rodgers even said he doesn't get cell service at his own home, which is a little interesting. Or no, he doesn't have Wi-Fi. But again, phones have something called cell service. You don't need Wi-Fi to connect using your cell, roaming data and such. But yeah, Rodgers went on that darkness retreat. Gutekunst couldn't get to him, and then he came out of darkness retreat saying he was 90% retired. And at that point, the Packers were so fed up with not being able to contact Aaron Rodgers that they entertained the idea with the New York Jets to trade Rodgers to the Jets, which eventually culminated into Aaron Rodgers becoming a New York Jet. And then here we are now. Rodgers now got forced out of the New York Jets. Aaron Glenn came in and said, you know what, we're going to go a different direction at quarterback. Now Rodgers is sort of left to figure out his next direction. And there was that famous picture by the Daily Mail of him on a beach with headphones on, in a robe on the beach in a bathing suit, just looking out into the deep, dark abyss, maybe pondering maybe his next career move or whether he's going to retire and whatnot. And then we're hearing Albert Breer say, people close to Rodgers apparently, Rodgers is saying that maybe he shouldn't have moved on. It's a greener pastures type of a thing. Well, obviously, hindsight's 20/20. You're in a situation where you had a stable coach, a stable front office, a growing team, a good defense at the time, a good offensive line. The only issue was you. You wanted 3 years, $150 million. I'm pretty sure all of it guaranteed. Diana Russini reported that. You actually denied that report, and then like a week later, that's what happened. It's kind of funny how that turns out. You already had the Packers in your grasp. They did basically everything you wanted. And then you decided to leave that organization, go to the New York Jets, who, by the way, already got a bunch of your guys to please you. So you already had a grasp on the New York Jets. And now the situation is out of your control because you said you wanted to go to the New York Jets. And then the Packers entertained that idea and sent you. Now you waited for the Vikings, who reportedly were interested in you, and you were waiting for them. And once they said you were out, you were like, okay, let me figure out what I'm going to do with my career. Now it's up to the Steelers, who, by the way, have Mason Rudolph, and all the reports are if they have to, they'll be satisfied with keeping Rudolph as the starting quarterback unless they draft somebody. The Giants seem like, well, they just signed Jameis Winston, and they're in a situation where they could draft a rookie quarterback or get Russ and draft a rookie quarterback. That would be an entire mess, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later, actually. But right now, teams are waiting on you after you were waiting on the Minnesota Vikings. And I find it absolutely hilarious how Aaron Rodgers is now realizing that he misses his time in Green Bay after he forced himself out of Green Bay.
That is a messaging system to the Steelers that he wants to go there.
Well, to answer the question, I think right now you have to take a look at both organizations. The Giants who are interested in you and waiting for you and gave you more money, and the Steelers.
I think he's crazy to go to the Giants.
I agree.
Because the Giants are a mess. Right? He's going to wind up on his rear end most of the time there, under pressure all the time. He has he had an Achilles injury, a very serious injury just 2 years ago. You want to go there and take a pounding? Why? It makes no sense. Go to the Steelers. You know, they've already made him an offer, and he just hasn't taken it because the money isn't that good. Now he's signaling, the money maybe not all that important. To me, I'm looking for culture, a lot like what I had for 18 years in Green Bay, which I diss those guys, And look what happened to me. I got traded to the Jets, and I found out what a poorly run organization is like and how badly it can affect me. Yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah,
well,
you should have thought about that.
He was also the assistant GM of that team. Look at all the players he brought over.
Yeah, so he's looking for a culture like Green Bay. Makes me think that, as they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder. He's sad now that he's not in Green Bay anymore. His foray into the NFL free agency has been a long one so far, with no end in sight at the moment, I could say.
Oh, wait, we got breaking news. Giants signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year, $21 million deal.
Not that surprised.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, we got the Giants coming up with Jameis Winston. We do. And I have Russell Wilson baked into my analysis, so I was
$10.5 million guaranteed. We have breaking news.
Okay.
There we go.
That doesn't surprise me, actually, that much. Okay, so his only really legitimate suitors, I think, are the Giants and the Steelers. I don't think the Vikings really want to have much to do with him. Rodgers appears to be looking for the best football situation rather than the most money now. He signaled that with his culture comment. He's now more appreciative of what he had for 18 years in Green Bay. Spending 2 years with the Jets made him view the situation he had more favorably, for sure. The Packers are renowned for stability and consistent contention. Two attributes the Jets lack, for sure. We could go into a long discussion about how bad they've been. Somewhat surprising that he would have positive comments about the Packers, given things got very contentious between them due to the lack of communication during the 2023 offseason. You mentioned that, his lack of Wi-Fi and his ayahuasca retreat. He was missing in action there for a while, and he was eventually traded to the Jets. This messaging appears to favor the Steelers, who have a winning atmosphere that Mike Tomlin has cultivated. Pittsburgh has never had a losing season in Mike Tomlin's 18-year tenure, and has made the playoffs 4 of the past 5 seasons, even though they've lost in the first round every time. Maybe Rodgers is somebody that could get them at least into the second round. Also, just Mason Rudolph stands between him and the starting job, so there isn't so much competition there or the danger of him being a bridge quarterback unless the Steelers decide to draft a quarterback along the way. But they won't get somebody pretty far down the list, so I don't think he has too much to worry about there. On the other hand, the Giants are just 9-25 since the start of 2023 and just signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal. And just 2 minutes ago, we learned that Russell Wilson's going to be there for $21 million with $10 million guaranteed on a 1-year deal. So he's not going there. We know that for sure now. So all he's left with is maybe an outside chance for the Vikings and the Steelers. And I think the Steelers have got the upper hand on him now for sure. He visited with them last Friday and met with GM Khan, Tomlin, Arthur Smith. He was there from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The visit was described as positive, and the two sides agreed to stay in touch, but he walked away with no contract. It seems to be a safe bet that Rodgers will sign with the Steelers. The big question is when? When is it going to happen? And now, why wouldn't it happen soon? I mean, he's got no leverage. He should take the money, whatever they're offering, sign up with the Steelers, get busy, learn their playbook, and be ready for the season. He's got nowhere else to go unless the Vikings, and I don't think the Vikings want him. And so this is it, Aaron. You haven't got no other place to go. The Giants just signed Russell Wilson. They got Jameis Winston as their backup. They got Tommy Cutlets in the background, too. So this is it. Go play with Mason Rudolph. He's not going to be a threat to you. You'll be the starter there. The Steelers, but the Steelers don't appear to be in any rush, and why would they be now? They know they need a quarterback, but they are patiently waiting and remaining confident that they are the top option for Rodgers, and that's all. And it looks like maybe the only option for Aaron Rodgers. It's believed they have not changed their offer throughout the process, and why would they? They might even shrink it. Say, you know what? You have our offer, either accept it or here's what's going to happen. It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But they're letting him know that they want him. They've let him know they want him for 2025 on their terms. If it doesn't work out, they could draft a quarterback, as I said, with one of their higher draft picks, or make Mason Rudolph their bridge quarterback for 2025.
Well, I want to. We're gonna skip a little bit of in our rundown here because I do want to talk about the breaking news. Russell Wilson signs a 1-year, $21 million deal with the New York Giants, $10.5 million guaranteed. More of it's gonna come through. Obviously, reactions are coming through, but Russell Wilson is now a New York Giant. That now he joins Jameis Winston, who signed a $2.8 million deal. This is who I was working with last time, and then Tommy DeVito, who also signed a deal with them. And so right now, let's talk about the Giants situation. They have the third overall pick in this upcoming draft. Jameis Winston just signed a 2-year deal. Now Russell Wilson's there for $21 million with $10.5 million guaranteed. Now Chase Daniel was on Diana Rossini's podcast, and they were talking about this situation. And Chase Daniel believes that the Giants need to win 8 to 9 games and draft a rookie quarterback. So my guess would be, if the Giants do draft a quarterback, then Tommy Cutlets would be released. I think he's on a 1-year deal. My guess would be that he'll sort of be the sacrificial lamb in this situation. But I do think when it's all said and done, I do believe that there's a shot if the Giants do what maybe I'm expecting them to do, and Russ is the starter, and who knows what that means for this upcoming draft. But I'm going to throw this out here because I did see this report earlier. Here's what I'm going to say about the New York Giants in this situation. I think with the signing of Russell Wilson, this means one thing really. I think the Giants are going to take Travis Hunter at the number 3 spot. I think right now, with the way that they're looking at it, they reinforced their defense. They already have a good defensive line. They just upgraded their cornerback group and their defensive back group. Their offensive line is okay, but it could improve, obviously. They have no running game, and right now you could argue that they have a quarterback. I don't particularly think Russell Wilson is a dynamic player anymore. I don't think he's even that good anymore. I think he's average to below average at this current moment, and I think right now, for the past 4 years, it's been a nice but brutal slide for Russell Wilson. But I think right now, if you take a look at this draft, it's Shedeur Sanders who seems to be slipping, and supposedly the Giants could be one of the teams that weren't overly impressed with Shedeur Sanders. They're not going to get Cam Ward. I don't think they right now need Abdul Carter. And currently on offense, they only have one real weapon, and that's Malik Neighbors. They have no real tight end. We could all love Bellinger, but he's not a true threat at the tight end position. And I think that if Dable wants to keep his job, I somewhat agree with Chase Daniel. They need to win a decent amount of games. You want to hover around 500. You don't want to start off 1-6. Because I think by that time, I think Mara's going to, call it quits and pull the plug on Shane and on Dable. So I think the way the Giants should go about this is, we'll wait till 2026 to get a quarterback. Because right now, you have an opportunity, if Russ performs poorly, that you could already get a high draft pick and potentially get Arch Manning or any quarterback coming out of the draft. Or if you want to go that route, the number 3 pick could be Travis Hunter, and you can get maybe a tier 2 quarterback like Jackson Dart maybe, and move on with that. So I think right now the Giants in the number 3 spot. I'm going to predict this right now, and I'm pretty sure some people are going to be mad at me about this. I think with the number 3 overall pick, the Giants are going to go Travis Hunter, pair him up with Malik Neighbors, Russell Wilson's your quarterback, a decent offensive line. It's not great, and if Andrew Thomas stays healthy, it was a top 10 offensive line in the NFL. Travis Hunter, Malik Neighbors, Russell Wilson, that's not bad, and I think that you could at least argue that saves Brian Dable's job for at least half the season. But if we're talking about these big-time moves and these, game-changing moves, I don't know if this is a true job saver. I think it's just putting it on hold for a couple of weeks while Russ figures something out and makes it look half decent. But I don't think that the Giants are going to go anywhere regardless.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what's going to happen, and I think it could be a disaster if Shedeur Sanders is available at number 3. Cam Ward's going number 1. If Shedeur Sanders is there at number 3 and they don't take him, and he winds up being the rookie of the year with one of the other teams down the line that will pick him, then that will make the Giants look just like they looked when they didn't sign Saquon Barkley, and he went off and had the most rushing yards in history of the NFL over the total season, including the playoffs. So they're in position to really put their foot in their mouths and step in it badly, and I think that's exactly what they're going to do. They picked Russell. I think they get tired of the dink and dunk with Danny Dimes. That didn't work out so well, right? So now they've gone out and got quarterbacks who sling it. Okay, you got Jameis Winston. He can come in now, and I said this. This is my note. Winston can play the role of a sort of supercharged clubhouse guy, leaving the option to bring in Russell Wilson with Winston as the backup. That's what's going to happen here. Both guys can sling it. And with that setup at quarterback, they can justify passing on Sanders and drafting Travis Hunter instead. That's what I said. I wouldn't do it, but the Giants might. Wilson did with the long ball in 2024. He was fourth among all QBs in explosive pass percentage and the top EPA per throw on passes of 20 yards or more. Hunter and Neighbors might be the right fit for a pass-happy offense with either Winston or Wilson at quarterback, throwing the deep ball more. I think Winston provides more an opportunity to break out of the dink and dunk, and so does Russell Wilson now. A Daniel Jones era. He has no problem airing it out, but needs to cut down on the turnovers. He's not going to get the play unless Russell Wilson is bombs out and they put him in or he gets hurt. I don't think that this move fixes the Giants' quarterback situation overall or for the long term. I mean, Russell Wilson's on a 1-year deal. He's old. Jameis Winston's not so young anymore either, and I don't think many people see him as a long-term starter anymore, given his history of throwing so many interceptions. But it gives them some flexibility. I think they will bring in, as I said, I think they're going to bring in Russell Wilson, and they just did, as well as if the Browns don't sign him first, which they didn't. I don't know what the Browns are doing for a quarterback now. We ought to talk about that sometime. I guess it's Kenny Pickett. If they get both quarterbacks, and they do have both quarterbacks now, an argument can be made for drafting Travis Hunter, as you just said. And if Sanders is available at number 3, they better hope he's not, and they don't take him. The opting for Hunter and Sanders goes on to be the Rookie of the Year. It will be one of the many reasons to say goodbye to Shane and Dable.
I think right now, like I said, I completely agree with Chase Daniel. I think right now there's not much that the Giants could do to save the jobs, and the only way that they would do that is by winning a decent amount of games. That's the only option for them, because right now it's not one of those periods where you'd be like, well, we'll give them a little bit of wiggle room. They've been there for now, what? This would be their 3rd or 4th year. I believe it's 4th year. And then Dable already won Coach of the Year after the 2022 season, where they actually had a really good season. Saquon Barkley had a great year. Daniel Jones had an efficient year, but they weren't in a situation where they were dominating in the NFC. They were a wildcard team. They beat the Minnesota Vikings when the Vikings were 11-0 in one-score games, and you could argue that they were just big frauds. And I think right now, I'm going to read this report because some people may think, I'm talking out of my rear when it comes to this. But according to Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, the current thought is that the Giants will add more veteran competition, as we just saw. They just signed Russell Wilson. It would seem like common sense to assume that Ward would go to the Titans, and the Browns will likely select skilled pass rusher who will ease the burden of Myles Garrett. So they're obviously talking about Abdul Carter. Now, supposedly, this is a rumor, it's possible that that the Giants are one of the 2 quarterback-needy teams that reportedly interviewed Sanders at the scouting combine and weren't overly impressed by him. So this is suiting up for a situation where the Giants do pass on Shedeur if he is available, and they go the route of selecting Travis Hunter, who you could argue him and Abdul Carter are the 2 top. If you're just listing who are on your big board, your draft board, who are just the best overall players, you could argue that it could be Travis Hunter 1, Abdul Carter 2, Abdul Carter 1, Travis Hunter 2, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But I do think right now that the Giants, their best move is because Russ is good enough. He's not a great quarterback. He's not a difference-making quarterback. He's good enough. And I think with Dable running the show, it could be interesting to watch. But overall, I do not think that this move, no matter what it is, will save Dable's job at the end of the season. It may just prolong the pain, where by week 5, if they're 0-5 or 1-4, they don't fire him. Maybe they're 2-3. Maybe they're 3-7.
I don't know. I don't think so. Look at their schedule. It's terrible. Their schedule is one of the hardest in the NFL. And they're in one of the toughest divisions. You've got the Commanders and the Eagles.
We also have more breaking news. We're breaking news on this show. Stephon Diggs to the New England Patriots. There we go. It's oh my Lord. 3 years, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed.
Wow.
There we go. Breaking more news on the show. Let's bring back the Eliot Wolf quote, why don't we?
Yeah.
Actually, let's see. Let's bring it back real quick.
Now the best player available.
Eliot Wolf, here we go. Let's
going,
roundhouse it right now.
Going with the best player available, now they're going to be gone. Abdul Carter's going to go number 2, and Travis Hunter's going to go number 3. So they should trade down now.
Now I believe the Patriots will trade down. I think they're not going to trade down out of the first round. I think there's an opportunity that they trade down to maybe the 10 spot, the 9 spot, somewhere around there, and get an offensive lineman at that point. I think there's probably 2 or 3 really good first-round offensive linemen, maybe even 4, where you could trade down, get more draft capital, and then build on your wide receiver core, the depth of it, maybe a little bit later on in the draft, or just get a bunch of offensive linemen, use the first couple picks to draft offensive linemen, because you could get Will Campbell maybe a little bit later. Maybe at the 6th spot. You could swap with the Las Vegas Raiders now, and this actually sets up the perfect opportunity for the Las Vegas Raiders to trade up with the New England Patriots. If the Giants now, with Russell Wilson at quarterback, they decide to go Travis Hunter, well, guess what the Raiders need? They can move up and potentially get their future quarterback with Geno Smith still only there on his normal deal that he's his expiring contract. They may decide to draft for the future and not give Geno the extension. Which I don't know what that situation is. They can get Shedeur Sanders. That's a potential opportunity.
Happen. I bet that's what they're going to try to do.
I could also see a situation where the Patriots decide to go running back and then use some of the other picks to go with offensive linemen. They could do that as well because they do need a fix at offensive line. So my guess would be, as it currently stands, this is crazy. The New England Patriots, 3 years, $69 million deal for Stephon Diggs, who was just playing on a prove-it deal with the Houston Texans coming off a torn ACL. I'm glad the Patriots are spending the right money where it matters and getting a top-tier player. I still think Stephon Diggs is a game-changing player. He just had, 6 seasons of 1,000 yards, something like that, with a combination of Kirk Cousins and Josh Allen.
8 games he played with Houston, he averaged 62 yards a game. He had 3 TDs.
I'll take that because guess what? The Houston Texans had Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon. They had a lot of talent everywhere. So Stephon Diggs, I had him on my fantasy team. He was a viable player for me, especially in fantasy. And I think right now, the Patriots just added a true wide receiver 1. This is the first move that they've made in years where you could say, okay, that guy is a true number 1. And you can look down the roster. Who was the last true wide receiver 1 that the Patriots made a move for? The only person that comes to mind for me is Randy Moss.
Yeah.
That's probably the last time the Patriots said, you know what, this guy is a very good receiver. He's top of the class when you talk about, he's not on the level of a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson. He's in the tier below of good, really good wide receiver 1s. He's not elite. He's no longer an elite wide receiver. He's a very good wide receiver 1.
And well, his money speaks to that, right? He's got 3 years under $70 million. So, it's not up in the Justin Jefferson elite category.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that this is a perfect move for the New England Patriots.
Okay.
Because they finally got someone. They made the moves that matter.
Trade down now. Trade down.
I agree with that. Yeah. I completely agree because now you're in a situation where the best player available doesn't currently make a lot of sense for you at the number 4 spot. Yeah. Just like how I didn't think it would make any sense if you're at the number 1 spot either. Because you don't need a quarterback. You don't there isn't a wide receiver that's just completely backbreaking. You're going to be like, hey, we have to get him at the number 1 overall pick, which I don't think has happened since Keyshawn Johnson, I believe, years ago. I'm maybe don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he was the last wide receiver to get selected first overall. But right now there's a situation where the Patriots should trade back because the offensive line is a massive hole, but now you have a lot of options that you could trade back and still get. You don't need to reach on anybody. You don't need to reach on a potential offensive lineman, a tackle that you desperately need to play guard. You could wait a little bit for that, and so it makes a little bit more sense. But now, finally, the Patriots get somebody of value. Hold on. We're going to take a break now because we got, 3 more topics left?
Yeah.
So, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Matthew Stafford speaks about the departure of Cooper Kupp and the addition of Davante Adams, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about college hoops. The 2, I think, remaining Big East teams fall in the round of 32. We'll talk about some of the 2 top-tier Big East teams in UConn and St. John's. We'll talk about both of them right after this break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of this very hectic breaking news show with
the Rams. They made some key moves in free agency this offseason, keeping Matthew Stafford, signing Davante Adams, and securing parts of their defense. After losing longtime Ram Cooper Kupp, Stafford recently spoke about his new weapon. And he said, I have a ton of respect for him, this being Davante Adams, the way he goes about his business and the way he plays the game. He's been a big-time player in this league for a long time, so happy to have him. And he knows him pretty well, right? They played against each other for 7 years when he was the Lions quarterback and Davante Adams was with the Packers. So these guys know each other pretty well. So what's your expectation for the Rams heading into the 25-26 season with Davante Adams, Cooper Nakua, and Matthew Stafford?
I think right now, what Matt Stafford's saying is true. I think Davante Adams is still a very dynamic player. I think he can still be a massive impact player, and he's obviously an upgrade over Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's production on the field and his impact on the game has diminished over the course of since his Triple Crown win in 2021. So right now, I think with the way Davante Adams played, even with Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, I think he was still able to get 1,000 yards, and then you go over to Aaron Rodgers and still be able to have a massive impact on the Jets, so much so that you're winning games for them, especially against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now you're going to a team that was literally maybe a half second of an offensive lineman block away from beating the Eagles and making it to the Super Bowl potentially. So that's interesting, but I think that his impact will be massive on the Rams because you have Puka Nacua, who now is coming out and saying that he wants to be retired by age 30. I don't know how great that's going to be, but he says he wants to be retired by 30. We'll see how it is if he gets a massive contract. But I think that this is a good move. And I believe we've talked about this when he first got signed, but I do think this is a great move for him. I think the Rams offseason was incredible. You shored up your defensive front. You already have a great defense that caused a lot of issues over the course of last season. You have the defensive rookie of the year on your team. You still need to bolster your defensive back group, and I think you will in this draft. There's a couple of very, very good defensive backs in this draft, but I think your linebacker group's fine. Your offensive line is still pretty secure, in my opinion. Kyron Williams is a solid running back. Now you have Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, wide receiver 1 and 2. I mean, I think the way that the Rams are going about this is very, very good. I think right now you take a look at the NFC, there's only one. I really think as it currently stands, because there's some question marks in the NFC, I think the Rams are the only competition of beating the Eagles next year in the NFC. I think there's a serious shot that they could cause some serious problems. And I think definitely, unless the 49ers hit on a bunch of picks, which they tend to do pretty well in the draft, I think right now the Rams are going to probably repeat as NFC West champions. And obviously, I think they're going to make a big stir in the NFC in 2025.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, Stafford knows Adams well from 7 years. They faced each other when he was with the Lions and Adams was with the Packers. We mentioned his quote saying that he thinks Adams is great. I know he's going to be a big addition to our team, he also said. While Adams eclipsed 1,000 yards receiving for the 5th consecutive year, he fell short of 100 catches. He had 85 for the first time in 4 years. He was hurt a couple of games, or so he said. He also dealt with some drop issues last year, which nobody says too much about. He can still get open, though, and he will replace Cooper Kupp, who was released after 3 consecutive seasons marred by injuries. He signed with the Seattle Seahawks, and you would pointed out some stats on Cooper Kupp and key statistics. He kept eroding. Maybe some of that had to do with his injuries. Stafford said he'll pull for Kupp as long as we're not going up against each other. The Rams' prospects for 2025 are bright, I think. I agree with you. And they could win the division. They have an elite wide receiver core now. They have a really good running back, I think. Williams is very good. And they re-signed Stafford. That was key. The defense is strong, and they even strengthened it some more for the rush. They had Russ, who was the defensive rookie of the year. He'll only get better, I think. What will they do in the draft? They have the 26th pick and may select a quarterback, possibly Jackson Dart. That's what I'm hearing, who threw 72 TDs in 3 years at Ole Miss. He has the traits of being a franchise quarterback, big arm, and impressive mobility. The Rams have a history of trading down and finding gems on day 3. This year they have a number 26, as I mentioned, in the first round, number 90 in the third round, number 100 in the third round, 127th pick in the fourth round, 191 in the sixth round, 198th in the sixth round, 202 in the sixth round, and 203. So they got 4 picks in the sixth round, 1 in the fourth, 2 in the third, and 1 in the first round. So be interesting to see what they do. I like their team. I like Matthew Stafford. I like the fact they've got 2 elite wide receivers now. I'm a little weird that Puka Nacua would say he wants to retire by 30. That makes me question something about his psyche. I don't know. And his competitiveness. I don't know. I don't think that's the right thing to say. Why say something like that? The defense, very strong. Look what it did near the end of last year. They just shut teams down almost completely. So, and they gave the Eagles a run for their money. That was a very good football game, played in terrible conditions. But they were driving for the winning score there, and there was only that sack by Carter that really stopped that drive. So we'll see what the Rams do. Looks very bright for them.
I mean, let's see. The Rams, and while I think Matt Stafford is a very good quarterback, I could argue at the current moment he's not top 10. I think he's a fringe top 10 quarterback. I know some people might have an issue with that, but I still think he is a very good quarterback. But I think when it comes to what the Rams can do next year, I think that, like I mentioned, they have probably the highest chance to disrupt the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm not saying they take over the number 1 seed in the NFC. I think they can make it very competitive, though. Because I think you take a look at the rest of the NFC. The Commanders, they have a year 2 quarterback who, I mean, just based on history, there is something called a sophomore slump. We just saw with C.J. Stroud. When C.J. Stroud added weapons, we have to realize that, they reinforced their wide receiver core, and they weren't as good. They got a better running back, and they didn't do as well. So, and their defense was also pretty good. The offensive line just fell apart. How do we know that the Commanders are going to repeat? We don't. So will the Commanders go 12-5 next year? Probably not. The Vikings, they're going to regress unless J.J. McCarthy can replicate what Sam Darnold can do. The Lions have a brand new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So how will that turn out? We just saw what the Eagles did with a couple offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators over the past couple of years since Shane Steichen left and Jonathan Gannon left. And they were rusty for a couple years. Then they finally secured it this year with Kellen Moore and also with Vic Fangio. But last year it was ugly, really ugly. So how will the Lions do then? Will Green Bay still be competitive? They have to make some major moves in order to stay competitive, and who knows if they'll repeat. They're a very, very young team. The 49ers, how will they do? I'm not entirely sure. But the Rams, they seem to be a very stable organization, which is interesting. Rodgers was most likely going to go there, in my estimation, if the Rams decide to let him go, if they didn't restructure Stafford's deal. I think that it just makes sense. If Rodgers talk about the culture and the stability and all of this, then I think the Rams are a pretty damn good bet to be
coaching.
They're stable.
Sean McVay.
Oh, he's a phenomenal
coach.
They have an incredibly young and talented defense. Their defensive front, I mean, take a look at the playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't 9 sacks against Sam Darnold. I mean, it was a disgrace how the Vikings could do nothing against their pass rush. So I think, and then they're reinforcing it now in the offseason. And now you replace Cooper Kupp, who's aging and hasn't been anywhere close to being the Triple Crown winner that he was in 2021. You get a guy with 1,000 yards playing alongside Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell and Brian Hoyer and Gardner Minshew and a touch of Aaron Rodgers. and you see him put up 100, 150 yards, you're like, okay, he can still play. He's still one of the premier wide receivers in the NFL. I think this is a match made in heaven. I think Matt Stafford is going to be very, very happy, as he said. I think this is truly incredible what the Los Angeles Rams did this offseason.
Okay.
Let's go to Rick Pitino now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Okay, so St. John's Red Storm fell to the number 10 Arkansas Razorbacks 75-66 in the round of 32. With 4:56 left in the game, Rick Pitino subbed out R.J. Lewis Jr. in favor of Ruben Prey after Lewis made 2 free throws to cut the deficit to 2 points. Lewis did not record a single minute for the rest of the game. Do you agree or disagree with Pitino's decision to bench Lewis?
I completely agree with it. Completely agree. Because he, at that point, was being a deficit to your team. He was being a minus factor. If we could take a look at the plus minus or whatever, we have to realize that most of the minus came at the end of the game when they couldn't hit a shot anyway. So we have to realize that that's why. When he was off the field, of course, he would be a minus 11 or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the game, they lost by, 9? And they couldn't hit a shot by the end of the game. So I have no problem with that, because it was 4:56, they had 62 points. That means basically the last 5 minutes of the game, they put up 4 points. I don't think that has anything to do with R.J. Lewis, because he barely hit a shot in this game anyway. And I hope that we have we have it here. So this was the play that probably got him benched. There was a double team. Zuby Ejiofor breaks free of the double team in a simple pick and roll. R.J. Lewis decides to drive, and he shoots a very ugly shot. But you just got to get it in between the two defenders there, pass it to Zuby Ejiofor. The center was already playing with 4 fouls, so he might have fouled out. And then what happened on the ensuing possession after this bad shot? Well, let's take a look at it here. A defensive breakdown by Aaron Scott, who completely loses the offensive player. Completely loses him. Way too focused on the guy in front of him. Meanwhile, one of the St. John's guys who was that was Zuby Ejiofor. He was right there, so the switch didn't make sense. Aaron Scott fell asleep. And then what happened after that? Well, Zuby Ejiofor, after R.J. Lewis got fouled, had to shake him to focus. I don't know if that's leadership. I don't know if that's bad. But the fact that after he got fouled, R.J. Lewis was completely out of it, and Zuby had to shake him to get focused, that is not a good look. So, yeah, we could complain about his plus-minus. We could talk about that. We could say you could better put your best players out there, ride or die with your best players. But at that point in the game, it was a 2-point game. R.J. Lewis just made 2 free throws after getting fouled. But at that point, he was shooting 3 of 17. He was 0 for 3. He was missing layups. St. John's was 8 of 25 on layups. Screw jump shots. 8 of 25 on layups. You had to make some sort of change. The biggest player was coming up small in the biggest moment. Zuby Ejiofor was the biggest player for St. John's. The only player for St. John's that was in double digits. And what the St. John's Red Storm didn't do was feed him in the post. The centers were in serious foul trouble basically the entire game. And in that double team, R.J. Lewis, because the Rick Pitino's big thing is play for the name on the front and the back. The name on the back will prosper. That's what he said in his Vice in the Vice documentary that they have going on this season. Well, that play right there, R.J. Lewis was trying to get himself out of trouble. He was trying to end his cold streak instead of riding it. It's a 2-point game at that point, 4-point game at that point. And instead of making the smart play, R.J. Lewis took the selfish play and took a 2v1 matchup, a double-team matchup, and took maybe the ugliest shot of the entire game. Like that's being selfish. Rick Pitino obviously hates that. He's a big team guy. And this, statistically, out of every single NCAA tournament game Rick Pitino has ever been a part of, this was the worst 3-point shooting team that he's ever had. This game right here, they shot 9.1%. Rick Pitino, I believe, has been part of 60 NCAA tournament games. This ranked dead last in it. So this was a bad shooting day, bad shooting night. Arkansas played great defense down low, but I have zero issue with Rick Pitino benching R.J. Lewis. At that point, he was a detriment to your team. He wasn't really helping you out when it mattered most. 3 of 17. And he said in the press conference, he shot 3 of 17, and you know why I had to bench him and whatnot. To me, it's blatantly obvious. I understand people have an issue with it, saying you got to put your best player out there and ride or die with him. Rick Pitino decided to switch things up. I have no issue with that when you're trying to find answers. I mean, the answer was kind of there. The center that was currently out there, he had 4 fouls, and you don't feed Zuby Ejiofor down low. I have an issue with that. So R.J. Lewis getting benched, No issue with it whatsoever. I think it's a smart coaching move. What you could argue is that maybe you talk to him during a timeout. You try to get his head straight, although Zubi Ejiofor tried, and you put him out there when the game is still relatively close. You could have done that, but at that time, 5 minutes left in the game. It's a 2-point game. I have no issue whatsoever with Rick Pitino benching R.J. Lewis.
Well, I disagree with you. I think it was a mistake to bench R.J. Lewis. He just scored 2 free throws to bring St. John's within 2 points with 4:56 to go in the game. It's a new game, basically. A new game and plenty of time. The team was +5 with R.J. Lewis on the floor. They were -14 with him off the court. Another good reason for keeping him in there. After he was benched, Arkansas outscored them 11-4 to win 75-66. And, you can argue he was playing terrible. Yeah, everybody was. None of them were playing well except Ejiofor. And Ejiofor got all his points down low. I put it on Rick Pitino. Why didn't you keep going down low? You could have fouled those big guys out. They fouled the biggest guy out early in the second half. The other 2 guys both had, I think, 4 fouls on them. You could have got them out of there too, and they didn't. They were shooting the 3-point play. They didn't even have to shoot 3-pointers. There was no reason to. They were only down by 2 points. They should have kept going down low. When asked, Pitino had some poor answers, I thought. He said, Lewis played 30 minutes. Well, he'd been playing the 5 minutes that were most important in this game when they're only down 2 points. He was not in there. He was sitting on the bench. So what? As I say, the most important 5 minutes of the game remained, and you're only down 2 points. One of your best players available to continue playing, who's a very good defensive player as well. And who did they put in? Ruben Prey?
Yes.
He's a guy who hardly played the whole season. He may be great, I don't know, but he's only a freshman. The guy was in over his head. That was too big a spot to put him in. You should have left RJ in there. They were only down 2 points. So the 3-pointers were not that, I don't think they were that important at that point. Driving the lane, drawing the fouls, or dishing to Ejiofor would have been a good strategy, as all of the Arkansas big men were in foul trouble at that point. Instead, he went to Prey and Lalapopoulos, or whatever his name is. What's that guy's name? Leotopoulos, who were way in over their heads and looked out of it, lost out there. What's his name? Lalapopoulos. Leotopoulos. He scored 3 points the whole game. He played big minutes, too, because another guy who didn't show up, Kadari Richmond, was sitting on the bench for fouls the whole game. And Ruben Prey, I think he scored 2 points, too. What are those guys doing in there in the final 5 minutes of the game when you're only down 2? You still had the chance to win the game. Asked if there was one play that kept Lewis on the bench, Pitino referenced his shooting percentage, 3 for 17 and 0 for 3 from 3. Lewis averaged 18.5 points per game during the year. Pitino said they lost because they didn't share the ball enough on offense. And you showed a play there with RJ. He should have dished it to Ejiofor there. Instead, he tried to take the shot himself. Maybe that was the one that got him benched. I don't know. We did not move the basketball enough, and that led to shooting a low percentage. They needed to have a high number of assists to win, and they didn't get it in this game. Also, the matchups were tough, as Arkansas was bigger. But St. John's managed to get, as I mentioned several times here, get them in foul trouble, but didn't go down low with Ejiofor to try to foul him out. That guy's a beast. I mean, he was the strongest player on the floor, and they didn't go to him. They should have gone to him more. I like Rick Pitino a lot, but I thought it was a poor coaching job all around for him. His team was very tight. He should have told them to relax and play loose. They were playing with house money because at the beginning of the season, no one expected them to be the 2 seed to make the second round of the playoffs, and no one expected them to be there. So they were playing with house money. They should have been relaxed. They played their game and been relaxed. I think they would have beaten Arkansas pretty easily. He should have tried to go down low, more with Ejiofor, who had 23 points. It made sense because they weren't shooting the outside shot well, and the double double benefit was drawing the fouls on the bigs to get them out of the game with plenty of time left. They did it with the one really big guy, but the other guy who was good there, he had 4 fouls pretty early on in the second half, and they didn't get him out there. I thought benching Lewis with 5 minutes to go and only down 2 points, he's one of the most experienced players on the team. He was going to the basket and drawing fouls, and he was making his free throws. He might not have been making his jump shot, but he was making his free throws. He didn't miss any of them. Being only down 2 points, and the bigs in foul trouble for Arkansas, they could have continued to go down low, have the easy baskets, and draw the fouls. For his part, I thought Lewis took the high road. He said he wasn't a positive leader during the game. He said he felt like the team didn't do anything really. It sucks the way we lost. I let my teammates down. And I think the reason that Rick Pitino benched him is to send him a message that he let the other players down and that he was disappointed in him. And you know what? Maybe in November, I mean, there was a game when R.J. Lewis only had 5 baskets out of, 20 or so against, I think it was Villanova. Sit him down then. Give him a teaching moment. I'd say as a teaching moment, that makes a lot of sense. But not an NCAA second-round game. You lose, you're out. That's it. You go home. You're going to teach him something there? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what Rick Pitino was thinking. I think he made a mistake.
Even if it wasn't a teaching decision, what about just a coaching decision? He shot 3 of 17. He was 0 for 3 from 3.
No, but in the NBA, do you think you'd take Steph Curry out? If you were down 2 with 5 minutes to go in the game, and Steph Curry had been 1 for 20 in the game, do you think that Steve Kerr would take him out of the game?
Here's the difference.
No way. No way. He's the best player on the team.
Correct.
He's the best player. He's going to be in there. He'll shoot his way out of it. Great players
How
do.
many shots you want him to take? He took 17.
No, but you know what? He didn't even have to. He could drive the lane, dish it.
But he didn't.
Edge it for.
Hold on.
But maybe they should have told him, go ahead and do.
Perfect opportunity right here. Zuby Edgefor is wide open in the middle of the paint.
Yeah.
And instead he drives into a double team and takes that. So if you talk about he could have drove and dished, well, pick and roll, he's open, and then look at the very bottom of the screen. If Zuby Edgefor doesn't take the low post shot, you could. I mean, I don't think so, but if he doesn't take the low post shot, look at Aaron Scott at the bottom of the screen. He's wide open for a 3.
Yeah.
He's the only. There were 2 people that made a 3 in this game.
Those are mistakes, but you know what? That's a coaching moment. You tell him, look, we need to go down low to Edgy.
You don't,
right?
you don't think he was doing that all game?
And you know what? If you get down low and Edgy hasn't got the shot, he'll pop it out for a short jumper, not a 3. And they're only down 2 points. You put in Ruben Prey. He's a freshman. He hadn't hardly played at all season. You put in the other guy, the Italian, the Greece guy. He hardly played at all too. Those guys, not fair to them. Actually, it really was not fair to them. What did he think was going to happen? The game was lost when they made that decision. That was it. They were outscored 11-4 after that. It didn't have to happen. They could have won the game. They still could have won the game.
They very well could have, but we don't know what R.J. Lewis would have done at that point. Because at that point, he was essentially a statue. He wasn't doing anything offensively.
He was drawing fouls and making foul shots. That's better than anybody else was doing.
That's not true. Zuby Edgefor scored, 21 points?
Okay, well, then dish it to Edgy. Drive down and give it to him.
That's the thing.
He didn't, but they could have told him to do it. They could have had a timeout, said, look, when it got cold, we're not shooting from outside. Doesn't matter. We're only down 2 points.
And you think R.J. Lewis is the only player that can do that?
We're only down 2 points.
And you think R.J. Lewis is the only person who could have done that?
Keep putting it to them. They're in foul trouble.
No, I get your point. I get your point 100%.
Okay.
But you think R.J. Lewis is the only player that could do that? And by the way, Rick Pitino said in his right before the half, he was doing that interview with the reporter. He said to do that, but they never did.
Well,
and at that point,
they're poorly coached.
Or R.J. Lewis decided to shoot into double team. Then Aaron Scott fell asleep on defense, and then as soon as R.J. Lewis got fouled, and before he made the 2 free throws, that's what Edgefor had to do: shake him to focus because he was talking to the defender. His mind was out of it. You can't do that at that point.
I think it was a wrong thing for Edgefor to do that on the court.
Why?
I think that
what are you
sent
going
a
to do it
wrong
to him?
message.
He's in the middle
That's
of doing
It's the coach's responsibility to talk to a player about
I
how he's playing,
completely disagree.
not another player. And you know what? The
Tom
Arkansas
Brady would do
players,
that. LeBron would do
the
that.
Arkansas players fed off of that. They said we could see how frustrated we were making them. Look what Ejiofor did to R.J. Lewis. We noticed that.
So then
they talked about it.
Okay, then what? Okay, Tom Brady would do that. LeBron would do that. Anyone who is a leader on your team would do that. It's not only the
do
coach.
It over on the bench, not out on
You're
the
in the
floor.
middle of a game, and R.J. Lewis is doing it right now. You need him to
plus
focus
Rick
to shoot
Pitino
free
used
throws.
up all his timeouts. He only had one left with about 5 minutes to go, too. He should have managed his timeouts better, too.
We only had, 4 in the game, 5 in the entire game? And at that point, you need to... Why do you think he used the timeouts? They kept letting the lead slip.
Yeah, well, I give him a lot of credit for bringing him back to get him within 2 points when they played so poorly all the way there. But when they had the chance to do it, I think he made the mistake by sitting RJ down.
I guarantee you, Rick Pitino told the
thinks it's a mistake, Nate. I listened to Stephen A. Stephen A. said, that's crazy. You should never have done that. Everybody I listened to said, you should have left him in here. He's your best player.
But he wasn't playing his best at that point.
NBA team would do that. You shoot your way out of it. Your best player's out on the floor when you're only down 2 points. You don't go with people that haven't played hardly at all season in the biggest game of the year in an NCAA double second round game. It's crazy.
Well,
I know what he was thinking about.
The difference is in an NBA game, in the biggest moments, it's a 7-game series. This is a one and done. You have to figure out
a one and done. In an elimination game, do you think Steph Curry's going to be sad because with 5 minutes to go and you're down 2 points? No way. Absolutely not.
He's going to get sad at some point in the game.
Oh, but not at the end. Not at the end. I mean, the argument, well, he played 30 minutes. Yeah, well,
30 out of 40.
He didn't play the most. He was sitting on the bench in the most important 5 minutes of the game when you had a chance to win.
If R.J. Lewis shot 5 of 17.
You don't think he could play 35 minutes? The kid is in excellent shape. He's only 21 years old.
Yeah.
Come on. The conditioning, the fatigue had nothing to do with it.
I agree. I'm not saying it did.
It was an emotional thing. It was to to throw him under the bus. As a main reason they lost the game, and it wasn't the main reason they lost. It was Rick Pitino's coaching at the end that made him lose the game.
No,
not R.J. Lewis. They could have won that game,
but they didn't.
They didn't because they had players in there that had no business being in there. It wasn't fair to them to put them in there. They'd never been in they hardly played all year, and here they are at the end of an NCAA second round game against Arkansas. Only down by 2 points, and you counting on them to hit some key some key baskets
but
to win the game.
Anything.
It ain't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen.
So R.J. Lewis is out there, okay? 3 of 17 is what percentage? Let me look that up. 3 of 17.
I don't care about that.
You
I
bet.
don't care about
he shot
17.6%.
You should.
It didn't matter. You're only down 2 points with 5 minutes to go.
R.J. Lewis will be out there to do what?
R.J. Lewis
to do what?
To play great defense and to drive the ball to the hoop. Forget the 3-point shot. You didn't even need to. You didn't even need.
That's what
all you have to do is a coach to tell him, do it.
He did.
Do it.
He did several times. You think Rick Pitino with 5 minutes left finally told his guys, "Hey guys, maybe try to drive the basketball." You think that was the only time you think he went on the sideline and told Ruben Price, "Hey, we're going to put you in for R.J. Lewis. And what I want you to do is a brilliant idea. Drive the basketball." You think that was the first time Rick Pitino said anything, or do you think that it was from the get-go to drive the basketball? Because he knows what he said all year. They are not a good shooting team. So this is not an anomaly to be like, okay, drive the basketball. Rick Pitino said that. They weren't doing it. How is that a coaching thing when you tell a player, hey, drive the basketball, and then early in the game where you couldn't make a layup for the life of you, it kills, it absolutely destroys, obliterates any sort of motivation, it gets in your head.
Well,
that's not a coaching thing. That is just someone who doesn't have the confidence to shoot.
What?
They went 8 of... the driving also didn't work. They were 8 of 25 on layups.
No, but Nate, at the end, those guys are in foul trouble. Those guys are in big foul trouble. They should have kept going to it, and they had Edgy down there. He's a beast.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
He can muscle any of those guys down there. And you know what? If they triple teamed him, just dish it out for about a 7 or 8 foot jump shot, bank shot. You can't miss that.
But they were.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They were.
No, but they
were
could-
missing open layups. We saw Kadari Richmond drive and hit the bottom of the rim on a layup. We saw R.J. Lewis in a wide open layup hit the bottom of the rim. Zuby Ejiofor, I think, and a couple plays
you make
later.
My point. Aside from Edgy, they were all playing crappy. They didn't. They
So
all
why does it
played.
matter who's
so
out
why?
there?
So why put it all on RJ?
I'm not putting it all on R.J. All I'm saying is that
Rick
decision didn't make
Pitino
any
did.
sense.
Rick Pitino did. He sat him down.
Because I guarantee you, he looked at R.J. Lewis as the leader of the team, and in the biggest moment, he wasn't a leader. He was someone who was being a detriment to the team. That's a coaching example. Because guess what? How are you going to deal with some hard coaching?
Okay, well then, you know what? When they took him out, okay, that's fine. Take him out for 2 minutes and talk to him and
that's
say,
what I would agree with
and
you on.
take
Bring
him
him
out
back
and bring him
eventually.
back, but don't let him sit there the whole 5 minutes and watch the game dribble away. I mean, they lost the game.
If R.J. Lewis shot 5
They had
of
a
17,
chance to win that game. They were only down 2. He did a fantastic job to get them to the 2 point, only being down 2 points
R.J.
with that
Lewis
time
did.
left. No, I'm talking
Zuby
Rick
Ejiofor.
Pitino. Rick Pitino did the excellent job
And
to get
Zuby
him to that
Ejiofor.
point, and then he blew it. I don't understand. I don't understand.
How can
it.
you? Again,
He blew it.
How did he blow it by sitting a guy who was ineffective on
Because
every
he's the
facet of the
best.
game?
He should have kept his faith in him. He should have had him over
His
there.
head wasn't in it.
No,
You
but
could
for
see
2
it.
minutes. For 2 minutes, he should have sat him there, and he should have talked to him and said, "Look, you're our best player. We need you to play. We need you to drive to the hoop. We can get these guys that are in foul trouble. I want you to dish the ball if you don't have the shot. You know, tell him that. Just tell him that's what you got to do, or are you coming back out? You know." And he didn't. He just let him sit there, and he never spoke to him. I think that was the wrong thing. He did the wrong thing. And I like Rick Pitino a lot. And I think that, I hope R.J. Lewis comes back and plays next year. I think it was a teaching moment and a learning moment for him. It just happened at the wrong time. They should have had something like that when he played lousy back against Villanova in December. Set him down then. That would have made more sense. It didn't cost him a chance to get to the Sweet 16.
Here's what I would disagree with, but I could understand it. Starting Simeon Wilcher. Simeon Wilcher is not the same defender or has the same speed or can maintain on-ball defense like Davon Smith. But I can understand why Simeon Wilcher did start is because Smith has been dealing with an injury. Aaron Scott, I think, has an issue with his left hand or his shooting hand. I think a torn ligament or a broken bone or something like that.
Yeah,
he couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. He shot 1 of 10, and his only make was a 3.
But his thumb or whatever the problem was didn't bother him in the previous game. He
Correct,
played great.
but that's the thing. Aaron Scott wasn't complaining.
That's the other thing. These guys were too tight. They should have said, look, nobody expected us to be here playing this round. Go out and relax. Have fun. Play the game. Don't worry about
Since
it.
when
They would have
does
played
Rick
so much
Pitino
better.
say just chill? That's not what
That's
Rick
not
Pitino
him.
does.
That's for sure. And those guys took the tension. They were.
They have all year.
You could tell right from the beginning they weren't right.
Well, no, I think that Arkansas played a beautiful strategy. Play big down low, force them into difficult shots, and guess what? St. John's couldn't compete with it. Early on, Arkansas was out rebounding them, dominating the boards, dominating down low, and we saw Aaron Scott fall asleep on defense to extend it to a 4-point lead at that point.
It's unfortunate.
I think the ball movement sucked
we
as
like
well.
St. John's a lot. We've followed them. It's
I
been
go
a
to the
fun
school.
season. It's been a fun season. You go there. You're a senior. It would have been nice to see him get to the Sweet 16. It would have been really exciting. We're disappointed, and it's just tough. It's too bad.
It is tough.
I feel bad for R.J. Lewis. I really do. He took the high road. He said, "Look, it's on me. I played terrible. I hope he comes back because he and Ejiofor, right? They're going to bring another. They need to bring in some guys who can shoot.
Correct.
And they have Wilcher. They're only losing 3 guys, so I think that their future is bright, and I'm hoping that they can get back there next year.
All right, let's get to our final topic of today's show. We're sticking with college basketball. This next topic is after the number 8 seeded UConn Huskies lost to the number 1 seed Florida Gators 77-75 in the second round of the NCAA tournament on Sunday. UConn head coach Dan Hurley turned to Baylor players and coaches who were preparing for their game against Duke and dropped multiple expletives. Joy Ellis of the Queen City News in Charlotte captured Hurley's rant, posted to his X account, and suggested he was discussing the game's officiating. This was the clip that he captured while Hurley was heading into the locker room. Take a listen. You should get the clip up.
I hope they don't do that to you, Baylor. I hope they don't do that to you, John.
So that was the clip. It's screaming expletives. Hope you don't screw them like you screwed us. Not a great
talking
look.
about the refs.
So it's supposedly talking about the refs. It was not great, but here's what's really bad. The UConn men's basketball director of communications, Bobby Mullen, told Ellis that he would, quote, ruin his life if he didn't delete the clip. Not a great look. And supposedly there's an investigation going on now with UConn. They could potentially lose eligibility next year. There's a whole investigation going on right now. This is the exact quote. There's breaking news. The NCAA and Raleigh police have launched an investigation into UConn's athletic department. Following the Huskies' loss to Florida, Dan Hurley went on an expletive-filled rant that was caught on video by a member of the media. UConn's director, we talked about this, quote, ruin his life. I'm told the NCAA is considering possible postseason ban and loss of scholarship spots. Local law enforcement is also investigating the matter as making threats is illegal in North Carolina. So there we go. Massive potential scandal.
Yeah, well, Dan Hurley's a sore loser. That's what it comes down to.
That's what I've been saying.
He didn't have the team that was going to take him to the championship this year. That was obvious. He got beaten by St. John's twice. And I don't think that – and the guy can't – he runs his mouth too much. He's cuckoo over there on the sidelines. I'm surprised he's been as successful as he has. It's definitely the players, not him.
Well, I want to dig into this because I said, I don't know how long ago, probably a couple weeks back, might have been a month back at this point, because we went to the UConn St. John's game in Madison Square Garden. I paid very close attention to Dan Hurley because I knew what Dan Hurley does. He loves to talk to the refs, loves to complain about them. And every single TV timeout, every single break, he was talking and chirping to the refs. That's exactly what he was doing. That's exactly who he is. And now we have a situation where the UConn Huskies choked this game away. They were down, came back, and choked the game away. And Hurley's now talking to Baylor, saying, I hope they don't screw you like they screwed us, talking about the referees. How about this? From the 7:15 mark to the 28-second mark, how about don't make only 2 jump shots the entire time? Just going to throw that out there. How about your players stop choking in the biggest moments? How about the fact that now, after winning back-to-back championships, you go 24-11 overall and 14-6 in Big East play and get swept by the lowly St. John's Red Storm? Just going to throw that out there. Maybe we'll call it lowly at this point because St. John's just got their reputation back as being decent, and I think they'll continue it. And how about this? How about the UConn men's basketball director of communications not threaten a reporter for exposing who Dan Hurley is? Potentially, maybe a private moment, although he wasn't exactly being quiet about that comment. He was yelling it to a crowd in front of media members in the tunnel. And if that's who Dan Hurley is, and we bring the same sort of criticism saying, well, this is not a great look for UConn, and he keeps doing it, and he's blaming the press for how bad of a look that they're portraying on him, but all we're doing is playing his moments. All we're doing is repeating things he said. All we're doing is shining a light on his behavior during timeouts when decisions don't go his way. How is that unfair to the press to expose this type of behavior? And I'm not sure that winning back-to-back NCAA championships can really allow you to be a baby on the sideline. How if things don't go right for you, a ref turns your back, you say, don't turn your back on me, I'm the best coach in the sport. I don't know if that's exactly true, because UConn wasn't a bust before you got there. They won a national championship, 6 years before you got there? I think St. John's, Rick Pitino is a better coach than you because he's turned around every single school that he's been at. And it doesn't take him 4 years to make him prominent. It takes him 2. When they were complete busts 2 years before he got there, year 1 is a building period because he has to deal with players on his team and finally trying to recruit guys. And then year 2, we've seen every single school that he goes to. By year 2, he makes them a serious contender and puts them in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, Rick, we could say that Dan Hurley is the best coach in college basketball right now because he just won back-to-back NCAA championships. But next year, we're not going to say he's the best coach because we'll probably say the best coach is whoever wins the Natty this year. So we can't excuse this behavior. Now when you're threatening a guy, Joey Ellis, for exposing this type of behavior after you're ranting and raving about the refs, it's a terrible look indeed. But this is who Dan Hurley is. And what I hate is that when I point it out, UConn fans are like, well, you're not being fair or you're just a hater. I'm just a hater for talking about what everybody else is saying? If you could finally say, if UConn fans out there could say, you know what? He's a baby, but he's the UConn head coach. He's our baby. It's okay. Right, yeah. We accept his behavior. That's fine. But don't come at me saying, well, he's a back-to-back national championship winner, so this behavior is allowed. I don't think at that level.
I think
it should
catching
be.
him on film, taking the low road there with all of that, 4-letter words and blaming the refs for his loss. I think that's very unprofessional, and you're not going to win the national championship every year. You win it back to back. Not many people have done that.
Correct.
Did you really expect you were going to win the national championship this year with the record that you had and the way you played in the Big East? It was unlikely.
Correct.
I mean, they played well against Florida. You had the lead there for a while, but as you said,
it
wasn't the refs from
28 seconds. They made two jump shots.
Two jump shots.
Two jump shots the whole time.
That's what cost them the game. And the other team, the guy, what was his name? He had 20. I think he had 23 points. He hit some clutch shots there at the end, and I like that coach. He was very calm. I didn't see him running his mouth with the refs as much as Dan Hurley did. So good luck to Florida.
You're talking about Walter Clayton.
Walter Clayton. He had a great game.
He had made 5 of 8 from 3.
Yeah, he was.
They shot nearly 50. How about this? How about play defense from 3? You shot 47% from 3 compared to your 27.6. Maybe play a little bit of defense. Should have thrown that out there. Just maybe. You have some big guys out there. And also, there was a clip during a break when they were reviewing a play or whatever. You could see Dan Hurley telling, I think it's Samson Johnson, to flop. And then on the ensuing play, which was an inbound play, they try flopping, and the refs call him out on that and say it was a flop going the other way. So, there you go. Mm-hmm. Dan Hurley tries.
Let me ask you, who do you think is going to win it now?
Winning the NCAA tournament? Yeah. I mean, there's one obvious answer. It's Duke. It's Duke. They have 3 top-tier guys. They're playing Arizona on Thursday. That's going to be a hell of a game. Maryland just got it shouldn't be controversial, but it was a travel, which wasn't a travel, to have that buzzer beater from Queen, to have them advance. They play Florida, so we'll see that. BYU, what a story for BYU. They're playing Alabama. They might get smoked, although we could see the number 60 make it. Arkansas, Texas Tech. Give me Arkansas in that game. What I saw against St. John's, against the best defense, shutting them down and making them 4th bad shots.
Yeah, well, get this. Arkansas didn't have their best shooter out there either. He's going to play in the next round.
There you go. So, and here's another thing about Dan Hurley. The St. John's Arkansas game was probably the worst officiated game that I've seen in a long time. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yet Dan Hurley's complaining about the refs. There was, 30-something free throws in that game for each team?
There's a 42 fouls call.
Pitino didn't complain about the refs. You could argue that Kadary Richmond's 5th foul was the stupidest foul ever because all he did was go straight up. It wasn't a foul. There was a foul on Subian's He went straight up. Pitino could have been complaining to the refs in that moment, but at the end of the game, he didn't complain to the fans saying, I hope, Maryland, I hope they don't screw you like they screwed us. Good luck, Maryland, or Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they're going to screw you too. No, he's not saying that. Dan Hurley is. Yeah. Dan Hurley is. It's a terrible look. Yeah. And for me pointing it out and then to get hate by UConn fans that I'm a hater by just showing you who Dan Hurley is.
Well, you do go to St. John's.
But I can go to St. John's and then during the St. John's UConn game stare at Dan Hurley and see him every single time out go over to the refs and talk. You're not seeing every coach do that. I'm sorry. You're not seeing every coach do that. And it is a terrible look. Yeah. And then he's empathetic about his players leaving. Half my players are already talking to other teams in the transfer portal. Well, here's my thing. If you are the best coach in college basketball,
why would they want to
transfer? How can you not retain them? How can you not retain them? If players really believe in you, right, and your players really love the way you coach, the passion you bring, and you just won back-to-back national championships, why not hold him? Rick Pitino's doing that, and you could argue he just made the worst coaching decision for a player in his entire coaching career in benching R.J. Lewis. Every report is R.J.'s coming back. If he could essentially berate a player and embarrass him on the national stage, being the biggest Cinderella team in college basketball, and they're on the biggest stage in a 2-point game, bench the Big East player of the year, and yet there's a report he's coming back, or he might test out the draft, see what his stock is, and then come back. But I've seen no report of R.J. Lewis potentially considering leaving St. John's. How come?
I'm hoping he comes back.
Dan Hurley can't retain some of his players.
Yeah, I don't know.
Explain to me that, UConn fans. Explain to me that. All right, long show today. A lot to talk about. Breaking news all over the damn place. Stephon Diggs is a New England Patriot. Russell Wilson's a New York Jet, a Giant. Aaron Rodgers, now Tom Pelissero. I saw a report today. Rodgers can make his decision in the coming days, but who the hell knows? He may switch up.
He might as well.
It's going to be the
just-
Steelers.
He's got no leverage.
It's going to be the Steelers.
Aaron, make the wise choice. Go to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Start to get some camaraderie with the players there. You know, you're holding out. There's no reason to. It makes no sense. It just shows you not being a team player, which you've had a lot of criticism for in the past.
Well, that wraps up today's show. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers finally makes a choice. I'm sure we'll be talking about him on Friday, but be here Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security